Hello, welcome to the Wildline Podcast. I'm your host, Dan. I have Chris here. Chris, say hello.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to your weekly look at not the box office anymore, but, general box office-ish stuff since...
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a long time, hasn't it? I feel like I'm gonna have to change the show, right? I'm gonna have to change the title. I'm gonna have to change what this show does, because I think movies are coming back sometime soon. But it's just never gonna be the same. I think it's just gonna be so different for the next year.
And it's so in flux. It seems like that's what we're covering now. We're covering the transition. So it's the Wilder line. I don't know. That's not a better title at all.
I was trying to look up other titles the other day. There's a lot of really good titles taken. It's hard to figure out something because now we know what the podcast is going to be in like 6 months.
Yeah,
is it going to be about box office? I think it is. Is it going to be about home entertainment? Who knows? I haven't found a good slang term to use, like the wild line. So we'll figure it out. But movie theaters, they are coming back. So we'll do some movie news stuff, and then we'll talk through the home chart here, the second half of the show. But there's a lot of news to go through. Italy is reopening their theaters, which is cool because Italy was like one of the worst hit countries here. With the coronavirus, they had, a massive amount of people that unfortunately died from it, and everything was really shut down for a long time. But movie theaters are coming back in about a month. June 15th is when they're going to reopen. And I found it interesting that it's coming back later than gyms, swimming pools, and sports centers, which are coming back in late May here. Why do you think that is? Like, what is it about cinemas that they think is higher risk than like a gym?
That is a really good question because they're, to be honest, other than the butter machine and the soda machines, what else are common surfaces that people are touching? They could, it's pretty clear that when and if they come back in the States, there's going to be probably a longer time interval between showings, right, for deeper cleans of the auditoriums.
Yeah.
But other than that, like I can't imagine that this is any more high risk. I do not approve. I'm not proposing that the U.S. bring ours back like Italy is, but it does seem strange that we're talking about this like as if we were talking about sharing gym equipment.
Yeah, it is kind of odd, and like from where we grew up, Brookfield is where Marcus Theaters is sort of their headquarters, at least their flagship theater. And their CEO the other day basically was that like they have this whole system set up to bring it all back. And he said something like people don't breathe a lot in theaters. It's a crazy quote. They gotta check out. It's on Deadline. But he was basically arguing that like theaters are not high contact arenas or places. Like they're just not. Like you can separate people, you can do a lot of different things. So it's actually pretty easy to create social distancing in a movie theater. I think the big thing is going to be, are people going to, take that risk to go to be around other people? Are they going to have a mask on? Are the employees going to have masks on? Are they going to do temperature checks, all that sort of stuff? Is all that going to be worth seeing something on the big screen?
Yeah,
and I think that's the big question. That there's another news bit that we'll get to later that kind of answers that to some degree. But Italy's coming back. AMC sent out an email to their employees. Someone posted on Reddit, of course, that they are planning to reopen in July. And when is Tenet supposed to come out? Isn't it July?
Yeah, it's July. Yeah.
So I think what's essentially happened is AMC is saying, "Hey, we're planning to come back. Get ready to start working again." But it's going to be different, and they're not really going to be full on until the new content is playing. And if Tenet is still scheduled for July, maybe that's one of the first movies or whatever that Russell Crowe movie is. Have you seen that? The trailer to that?
What do you?
So like there's a Russell Crowe movie that I think the trailer dropped like 2 weeks ago. It's supposed to come out like early July.
Oh, Unhinged.
Yeah, Unhinged. And it's the basic premise is, Russell Crowe looks terrible, by the way. Like he looks so bad. I don't know what happened. Like he's like dealing maybe with an alcohol issue or something. He's always had troubles with that, I think. But he does not like a It's hilarious. The movie,
a road rage movie.
Yeah,
yes.
it's a road rage movie. Like, are we back to like 1995? I feel like road rage movies were like huge in the 90s. About
yeah,
LA.
what was that one? Changing Lanes with Samuel Jackson and Ben Affleck.
Oh God, forgot about that. But yeah, so I mean that could open up right before Tenet. That could be the first major wide release. Welcome back to movie theaters. Here's a really overweight and sad-looking Russell Crowe in a movie that probably cost $15 million to make. And
yeah, it's poetic actually, and it's called Unhinged.
Yeah, of course. So I mean, it sounds like. Do you think AMC is actually going to come back? That's the road. Do you think so? I don't know.
I think. Because we've talked about this, right? About like who's gonna let the first domino fall, and would AMC be the one to do that? I don't know. I'm not convinced actually. The more that I think about it, I think that there are a lot of talk, but I think when it comes down to it, they're playing chicken with everybody else. If Cinemark or Regal decides to go July 1st, then maybe that's what will make AMC follow suit, but I can't see them being the leader of the pack. They have too much to lose being so much in debt right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're in a troubled spot, and you know, there's potential that someone might try and buy them or take them over. And then what happens when that first story hits? Someone, you know, goes to the movie theater and they get corona, and they can never really trace where they got it probably, but it's like, oh, I went to the movies and then I got corona. And that hits like the USA Today, and then all of a sudden people are like, I can't go to a movie theater, and then they shut down again. It's kind of, but the reality is, I think the other perspective that I have here is that that's going to happen no matter what. It's kind of like similar to the German soccer league started back. It's the first, I think, major world sports league that's coming back.
Right, yeah.
This weekend. And they're playing to empty stadiums, and there's probably like, I don't know, 12 games or something this weekend. And it's really weird, but it's, you know, it's soccer. It's like, you know, it's a world sport that a lot of people are watching. Someone's going to get sick, right? And something's going to happen. And the point is that sort of like, that's going to happen no matter what. Whenever we come back, this is going to be part of the process of coming back, is that people are going to get sick. They're going to have to be isolated. The question is like, what level of risk is too much for what it is? And it's like going to a movie theater. I can't see myself going to a movie theater anytime soon.
No, I would go to I don't know. I was going to say I would go to a concert before I go to a movie theater, just because there's more of a, you know, live factor involved. But also like maybe a movie theater makes sense as like a test run for some people, where it's like, I don't have to go interact with anybody.
Yeah, that's true.
That's another possibility.
That's true,
I don't know. But yes, overall, I totally agree. There's no reason to risk it when there are so many available options at home.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, it's kind of weird too, because like where we're from in Wisconsin, they overturned the stay-at-home order.
Supreme Court.
Yeah, exactly. 4-3, like a GOP-stacked Supreme Court in Wisconsin, and immediately people shot out to like bars and stuff. And like started hanging out, and like, you know, the county where we're from, Waukesha County, has no restrictions now on what people can do essentially. And so it's really bizarre. I kind of wonder if like a Marcus is going to be like, okay, we're going to put this stuff in place, and people are just going to show up in droves because there's no sort of like government entity telling them don't do this. Because I don't know, at the end of the day, it's like people kind of follow orders to some degree. And so like if someone's not telling them no, are they really going to alter that behavior all that much? Who knows? I don't know. We'll see when this thing, when things start opening up in July. But speaking of at-home sort of alternatives to the movie theaters, the Trolls sort of world tour issue has gotten bigger. It turns out that Trolls has made about $200 million in revenue for Universal. And remember, kind of call back to the VOD wars a couple of weeks ago. You know, basically the CEO of Universal said, hey, Trolls is doing really well. We see this as a viable model moving forward. AMC freaks out and says, hey, you have to respect the release windows, exclusivity. We're banning all of your movies from now on. And a real tit for tat during that couple of days there. It sounded like it kind of resolved itself with Universal backing off a bit. But like another article here in Bloomberg saying this movie made $200 million. That's a lot of cash, and it's going to end up making Universal more money than the first Trolls movie that they put out. So, and I don't know if the $200 million is just domestic or it's worldwide. I'm not really sure, but it's a huge chunk of change. And it does put a lot more pressure on the movie theaters that, like, hey, your model might not be so exclusive or strong in 6 months if this continues. I don't know. What do you make of this Trolls $200 million?
I mean, it's huge. We have to credit where credit's due. This is an absolutely dreadful movie. I had the displeasure of watching it with my children twice in a 48-hour period. But it's they were the ones that wanted to swing first, and it's a gamble, right? And they did. I think they made the right call. I think there's no way we would be looking at 200 mil at this point if everything was quote unquote normal or in the before times.
Yeah, I just don't see it. There's no way it's going to make 200 million.
No. So I mean, there's no other way to look at this other than, I think, this has been a long-term thing with the box office, right? What kind of movies can you release now that you probably couldn't in the 90s that are now going straight to Netflix and straight to Amazon, right? Or being treated more like an indie movie than a mid-budget wide release, right?
Yeah.
And maybe that's true now. I would argue that maybe it's officially true now with the release of Scoob, which we'll get into later, that maybe kids movies at the movie theater is for Disney only now.
Yeah, like something huge, like a live action remake of whatever.
Right. Or Frozen 3.
Frozen 3. You know what's interesting about you saying that, though? I just sort of, something popped into my head as you were saying that about like how, let's say, rom-coms, certain children's films are going straight to streaming, all that kind of stuff. What this sort of premium VOD experiment also proves to some degree is that there might be a middle ground for films that were just premiering on Netflix. Like some of those, like, I guess you call them like the like young adult films, like romance films and stuff like that. The Adam Sandler comedies. What if instead of Netflix paying $100 million or whatever, as that type of money starts to dry up, what if Adam Sandler or somebody says, hey, let me make a movie and just do premium VOD on it and make cash that way. And that way I'm not getting buried in Netflix's queue of movies and getting lost. And I'm not having to put out, $100 million to do a theatrical release. Like maybe in premium VOD is a really good route for a lot of these middle ground movies. We'll see. I don't know. It's a potential there. Or maybe everything's fine in 6 months and it all goes back to normal, which I doubt is going to happen. No. Speaking of that, Alamo Drafthouse. So if you don't know Alamo Drafthouse, they're out of Austin. They started, like, I want to say like 20 years ago. Does that sound right? Maybe 25. And so they were really one of the first ones to get into this sort of serving food and alcohol and drinks in the movie theater and making it more of a sort of a luxury leisure experience. People love them. They do a lot of midnight shows. They're a lot of fun. They're a franchise setup though. So like you can open an Alamo Drafthouse wherever you are. If you have like $500K or like $3 million, something like that. Actually it's $2 million. I looked it up. So basically what's happening is a franchise of 3 of these out in Arizona. They're filing for bankruptcy. Now it's chapter 11. So that basically means that they have the right to sort of reorganize their finances and still continue as movie theaters. But it's not a good sign. It's not a good sign if Alamo Drafthouse, which is a really beloved chain of theaters, I think.
Yeah.
And that they're not technically going under, but pretty darn close. Like they don't have money to cover their bills. And so do you think that this is going to expand out, or do you think because they're kind of franchised or separate from a big corporation that it's kind of a one-off, or do you see this happening kind of broader throughout the country?
Yeah. I mean, I hate to be cynical, but if one of the most beloved, styles of movie theater can't keep their shit together, what else is going to happen? Can you make an argument for anything else other than this is the beginning of the end?
Well, I would say that the fact that they're franchisees kind of makes it a little bit of an outlier, because it's like they're all kind of they have to do their own finances and stuff. They can't really go to the corporate till and take more cash and debt. And so that might be why they're failing first. The big question for me is that, like, can AMC, Regal, Cinemark, and Marcus survive? And I would say that, like, there's a 50-50 shot on AMC. The other ones, I think they're going to be, it'll all depend on how quickly stuff reopens and how comfortable people are going back. Because if this continues all the way through the holidays, I think we're going to lose two of the big ones at least. Like a Regal, Cinemark, AMC, they're going to go down. And Alamo Drafthouse may go down too, because they're newer. And the sort of franchise model that they put in place is pretty new across the country. There's a chance that, like, we lose the big three of them. Maybe Marcus is the only one left standing. It's possible. But I think, I mean, it's sort of like, if you look at it from a different industry that's going through this now, like Warren Buffett took all his money out of airlines, which was like a big signal that, like, oh, Delta may not exist in a year. Like, so I think that's kind of the moment that we're seeing now. It doesn't look great for a lot of these. I mean, if I had to, like, put money on a guess, I would say that probably at least one of the big four is going to go bankrupt and go out of business. And if things don't open up by the holidays, I'd say at least half of the business might fade pretty quickly, which sucks. I mean, it sucks for everybody, but, like, it was going to happen anyways. And it might actually provide an opportunity for different players to get into the game. Hopefully, like maybe a silver lining.
Possibly.
But kind of speaking about that, we also, this marketing research firm did this survey of called Movie Theaters and Social Distancing. Basically, are people willing to come back to movie theaters? Kind of what we've been talking about in these last few stories. And it turns out they will, at least according to this survey. If specific security measures are put in place, about 75% of people are willing, or saying they're willing, to go back to the theaters. Without those precautions, I think the number was like low 40s. And then this is stuff like hand sanitizer stations, limited show times to do cleanings, face masks for employees and people, customers, temperature checks, stuff like that. Masks for everybody. It's this number seems really high to me. Like, I feel like if people had to wear masks to go to the theater, then they're not going to go. If they have to do a temperature check, I think Americans are very naturally libertarian and don't want somebody like checking their temperature when they have to go to a movie. You think the TSA is bad. Just wait until you have to sort of go to see whatever. Unhinged, and you have to wear a mask and gloves and get your temperature checked to see Fat Russell Crowe act like an idiot, and pay like $15.
Right.
So it seems a little bit. This seems like one of those surveys that was paid for by the movie theater industry.
Yeah.
To say, hey, look, everything's fine. What would it take you to go back to the theater? Of these, like, the precautions they have listed here are sort of safety measures.
I mean, I don't
think about going with your family.
Right. And that's the big struggle, because, like, right now the only reasons we leave the house is to get groceries, and that it's just my wife or I go out, and we wear face masks, and we just do the pickup in the parking lot. So I think I really can't imagine any of these things would make me go out. The only exception to that, I would think, is if in conjunction with some combination of these things, also there's more good news from the CDC about the pandemic overall, right?
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
So I don't think they can just say, oh, we're taking all these precautions and that not consider any external factors. They have to wait until the right time to actually reopen, and then also still keep doing these things while the peak goes down. I don't know. How about you as a single guy?
Yeah.
To go see a 10 a.m. showing of the next A24 movie, for instance.
As an A-lister, official A-lister, you're also.
Oh yeah,
Wait,
yeah.
Did you cancel your A-list?
Yeah, we canceled.
Oh, mine's suspended indefinitely.
Right. So yeah,
for me,
keep that in
it's
mind
very
too.
different. Like for me, I think it's very different. I love going to the movies a lot. It's a really important activity in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also like very opinionated and finicky about certain things. And like, that's why I go at 10 a.m. on a Sunday to watch certain movies. Like I don't want to be around a lot of people. I don't sort of want to do the normal movie theater experience where you're with, it's just like, it's different for me. I wouldn't mind going probably in like 4 or 5 months, like maybe in the fall, October, I could see myself going. I don't want to have to wear a mask. I don't have to do any of this stuff, like temperature checks. I'm not doing that. Like, it's not worth it to me. I got a nice TV. I got Criterion Collection. I'll just watch old movies until it sort of makes more sense. But that really does. You're right. It really does depend on like how the pandemic really plays out. Because in certain countries, like a Germany or South Korea, where things were handled a lot better, they're way ahead of us. Like they're like months ahead of us in terms of reopening stuff and having like a stable society and economy. We are unfortunately in an unbelievable backwater of a country right now. And like, there's 100,000 people that are dead at least. It's probably going to double or triple that in the next 6 months. And you kind of have to wonder in the United States, when are things going to be remotely safe again? I couldn't tell you. Could be a year. It could be, I think the real moment for us in this country, because it's so mismanaged and a complete shit show, is the vaccine. The moment there's a vaccine, I think things will look up, but until then it's going to be, I think, pretty bad, unfortunately. But what can you do? Speaking of bad things, how about New Mutants? You want to cover this?
Oh my gosh!
Little, tidbit.
You put this in our notes for today's episode, and the second I saw it, I had like a combination sigh of relief and also just like tightening of my stomach because it just feels like it's never ending. So on the one hand, the good note is that there is a new release date for New Mutants, the long belabored new attempt at rejuvenating the X-Men franchise, I suppose you would call it, the Fox Marvel collaboration, but it's on track for a theatrical release August 28th. I think they just need. This feels like an old Yeller kind of moment where it's like just take it out back and see what happens, and maybe it's putting it out of its misery and it recoups enough to break even, and then we can just move on from it, or it just completely tears everybody apart and it continues on like this ad nauseum. So like I like that you included the history of release dates here: April 13th 2018, February 22nd 2019, so August 2nd 2019, and then it was going to open on April 3rd of this year. The Josh Boone directed movie, the first trailer was dropped back at CinemaCon 2017.
It's just like, oh my
this
God.
Is obscene. Just let it die.
That's interesting though, is like, why do you think they're so committed to a theatrical release on this? Like August 28th, not going to happen. Like, let's be honest. Like, even with all the survey stuff, like this country's not going to open that quickly. And like, if you do movies and stuff like that, like maybe they drop it on, but why not push it to Disney Plus or Hulu? I mean,
I think it just comes down to it. It would be the first superhero movie to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that feels like a big like folding of the hand for them, even though it should feel like they've already folded their hand when they introduced it back in 2017, because it's never looked great and it's never been given a chance to do much. And then Dark Phoenix happened last year. Like the performance of Dark Phoenix should have just indicated to them like, okay, let's just move this out in January and dump it. But they didn't. They could have been rid of this if they just let it drown in the wake of Bad Boys 2 back in January. But no, they were committed. But I don't know.
Was Dark Phoenix was it the biggest flop last year that Deadline did? It was
I think it was.
Yeah. And this was this shot before then? I don't get the 2017 date in the Comic-Con trailer thing. I wonder if it was like in the can by then. No way.
I think it definitely was.
Because
it's also
really.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think this was in the can. Well, when did Apocalypse come out?
Oh, I guess you're right. It must have been because it was getting released on the 13th of 2018.
Right. Apocalypse came out in 2016. And so I think even before Apocalypse was released, they were setting this up to film during Apocalypse's theatrical run.
This is disgusting. Like,
it really is
awful.
I did have I did have a thought about was having myself a think about what's going to happen once production really dries up and the stuff that's been on the shelf waiting for release is all gone, and they're probably going to be, hopefully anyways, more precautions before actual production starts revving up again for any major studios. But I want to know what's on the shelf that never came out that they're going to start like scraping the bottom of their barrels to find for us in the next year,
to like put out in like theatrical or like not produced yet.
Or no, like stuff that's done, that's in the can, that just never got a release, and they just, or that's like that was eternally in post production, and they just never finished it because there's got to be a handful at each studio, right?
There's got to be a lot, because like, well, I guess like if it's post production, that's kind of different. You can probably do that in a social distancing environment, but anything that needed to get shot,
right?
Obviously, dunzo for a long time. That was probably stuff that was going to be coming out. I want to say like, I don't know, like next spring or something that we're shooting, or maybe even this winter. I mean, it's probably just like so many dead projects. There's probably stuff that like got 60% shot and they're like, we're not going to continue this. Like,
no, they could do what NBC did with The Blacklist though, and they could partially animate part.
Oh my god!
Did you see that?
No.
When
God. Was that? What happened?
So the Blacklist, the James Spader NBC show, the season finale they never finished filming. So when production was halted, they decided to animate the rest of the episode, and so they have like a cheesy like comic book transition, and the animation is just dreadful. You should check it out. It's pretty hilarious.
That sounds awful. Speaking of production, we have a little announcement here for Netflix. They scored this massive film, Ball and Chain, which is a superhero movie that's going to star Emily Blunt and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. It's a huge steal for them. Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson are going to be in Jungle Cruise, which is supposed to come out. I guess that got pushed to 2021, didn't it? I think it did. Yeah. And so I think that's going to be a massive movie. Even if it's released this year, I thought it was going to be massive. But I think it's going to be huge because those two have a lot of chemistry. And this is a big steal for Netflix to get this sort of movie. Emily V. Gordon, did she do Big Sick? Am I right about that?
Yeah, okay. She's the wife of Kumail Nanjiani.
Oscar nominee. And so Johnson and Blunt will play a couple struggling in their marriage who are equipped with superpowers. However, their powers only work when they're together. It sounds wonderful.
What a gimmick.
Sounds great.
Mr. and Mrs. Smith meets Fantastic Four, I guess.
But this does sort of bring up the Netflix doing popcorn blockbuster films.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And that idea really kicked off, I think, with like Bright, which was how many years ago? Like 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
I think I watched it in Harry's basement with the Drax. And were you there? Did you watch it with us?
No, I've never seen that movie.
Oh my god, you missed out. It is horrendous. And I do wonder, and it kind of, in all these conversations about movie theaters in the future and stuff, I think it's inevitable that an HBO, a Netflix, an Amazon Prime will start making blockbuster films. It's just going to happen.
Oh yeah. I'm surprised that, because I mean, Bright and Bird Box were both pretty huge, right?
Yeah, I think Bird Box,
even though they're trash.
Oh god, so bad. I want to say, I don't know what the production budget on Bird Box was. So I had to guess probably like 50 million, 40 million, which is not like huge, but it's definitely big. You would never spend that on a VOD, direct to VOD movie. But they were big. I think Bright was about 100 million.
That's insanity.
Yeah, exactly. But the big question is, for something like this, Ball and Chain, my guess would probably be about 70 to 100 million bucks production budget.
Yeah.
The question is, when did they get to the point where they're making Avengers Endgame? When do they get to $200 million? When do they hit the Wonder Woman 1984 level budget? If they ever do. Maybe they never do it. Maybe they just say like, hey, we're going to cap these out at 100 million. That's all we really need. But at some point, they're going to have to make that leap into bigger movies, and this is like a baby step towards that big leap.
Right.
And I the financials of it, I find it incredibly fascinating. I could talk about that stuff for hours. I'm not going to, but it's like, how do you recoup that production budget? With a normal movie, you can make sense of it. There's ticket sales, there's VOD deals, there's TV deals. It's all money coming in the door as revenue. With a Netflix movie, I mean, what would you measure, like subscription churn?
Well,
like,
I'm wondering, like with Emily V. Gordon on board, it seems like they're at least trying to do something. I mean, it sounds super gimmicky. If you didn't have Emily V. Gordon's name there, I would be telling you that they're going to get their money with action figures. Like they're going to build their whole universe around this original superhero, perhaps duo. But I don't know. It does seem like they're still like trying to do something that is I don't know, off kilter and off beat, and so it's not, they're not fully there yet. But I cannot imagine. It's speaking of like that piece of it, of trying to make money outside of the actual, in this case would be just subscriptions, and like they're bursting at the seams now, right? With quarantine and the number of subscriptions. And so like what other ways in which you do it? So one thing that I did when Christmas came along, and I was trying to think of my son's favorite characters, because then I like look out merchandising. A lot of these Netflix original children's programs don't have a merchandising line. Like there's little to nothing available for even, and like that would be I don't know. They've got to start thinking about these kind of other factors, tying in product tie-ins and stuff like that, if they're going to really make that next big massive step to making $200 million budget movies, right?
Yeah, I think that's always been one of my sort of, I would say, not maybe criticisms or skepticisms about how Netflix is going to make the jump towards a major studio, is that like they don't have those institutions in place, and those like, it's not like how product flows, but that's what I'm going to say. It's a product flow, like that would capture that entire narrative universe, and all the revenue you can make from it. That's all like automatic at a Warner Brothers and Universal, all the way down the line, from the moment the ideas a concept to the action figure that the 8-year-old gets 5 years later. Like it's all part of their system, and it's all part of their financial models as well. Netflix doesn't have any of that. Netflix is rebuilding stuff from scratch, and that's why I've always been a little bit skeptical about them. Their stock price is super sky high right now. There just seemed like an inherent weakness in what they're doing. They went from a tech distribution company to now they're trying to be a content major studio. Those are two different ball games. And so like it's a different, I think, challenge for them. But with something like this, it's like I think it's going to end up doing pretty well. But again, the back end of it doesn't make sense financially for a company to be spending $100 million on a movie like this. I don't know. I have no idea.
Super weird.
What's the next thing you got for us?
And well, in the meantime, there's still lots of news from the major studios about movies that are getting the green light and planning to get produced and filmed. And yet, of course, there's no real beginning in sight for any of that. But there's, a lot of scuttlebutt out on Variety, Hollywood Reporter, etc. And probably the biggest thing that I saw this week was the news that Luca Guadagnino and the Coen brothers are rebooting Scarface. Coen brothers writing the script and Luca directing, the director of Call Me By Your Name, and produce. This, I think, is actually the factor that makes it feel a little more legit, because right now, let's just like those two plus that iconic figure do not make any sense.
No, it makes no sense.
But then you have the producer who's not getting as much mention in the trades, but it seems to be the mastermind. This is Dylan Clark, the guy that rebooted Planet of the Apes with a brand new trilogy and actually made quite a bit of money.
Yeah, they did really well. Surprisingly, did really well.
Right, and actually were pretty decent action movies.
They were not bad. They were not bad.
Yeah. At all. So what is going on here, Dan?
Okay, so there's a couple things that you can like the Coen brothers must be getting bored.
Yeah,
Because
right?
it's like, why would you like Scarface is like, isn't that like the old 1930s movie, the original one, right? Like the kind of proto noir film. And so obviously the one that people mostly know is Al Pacino in the 80s version, Michelle Pfeiffer. And so is anybody calling for a Scarface reboot? I don't think anybody is.
No, but nobody was calling for a Planet of the Apes reboot after the Tim Burton failure either.
That's true. That's a good point. And Luca, who's just an amazing director. Have you seen? He did the Suspiria remake, right?
Right. I actually don't think I've seen a single movie that he's made.
Have you seen?
I don't know
Have
why.
seen Call Me by Your Name?
I still haven't seen that either. No,
You're insane. You mean one of the greatest films of the last 20 years? I've seen Call Me by Your Name no less than probably 30 times. It is just absolutely beautiful and wonderful. He is a great artist. Suspiria, is it Suspiria or Suspira? I don't even know.
Suspiria, I think.
Suspiria, yeah, you're right. It's one of the most insane things I've ever seen in my life.
Mm-hmm.
It's totally bonkers. You should see it. You'll love it. The ending, the last 20 minutes is some of the strangest things I've ever seen in my life. I can't believe it came out in theaters. It should have been banned. But it is what it is. That's why it's intriguing to me is this guy will go there. Think of the most unthinkable thing to put on film. He will put it on film. And so it could be really exciting. I see, like talking about theatrical releases versus not, this would be much more exciting as a Netflix or Amazon Prime original. I just don't think they're going to be able to sort of pull the really go for it if it's like Warner Brothers or Universal or even I guess Fox is Disney now. Disney's not going to put I don't know. I just don't. What do you think the Coen brothers are doing? Do you think they're just like they're getting old?
Yeah, I think they're getting old, and they perhaps have lost a little bit of their spark. I mean, this feels like maybe the beginning of their version of Woody Allen just writing and directing and not actually watching or caring about what he's making. I mean, they've always given that kind of vibe in interviews and stuff, and they already do very few interviews that like they don't care too much about what comes after. It's just all about the process for them, kind of like Soderbergh too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, they already gave a pretty good indication that they didn't give a fuck because they put Ballad of Buster Scruggs out on Netflix.
That's true. Yeah.
So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting. I'm not going to totally write it off, but also it does just sound like a silly idea.
At the very least, it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we got a couple of VOD releases. Do you want to talk about Scoob?
Yeah, let's talk about Scoob. Something I never thought I would say.
Scoob.
If we were doing this show in the before times, we'd probably give Scoob and Trolls World Tour like 20 seconds each of airtime. But it's kind of, I think this is, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me once, fool me twice, shame on me. And my family rented Trolls World Tour when that was released because it coincided with my son's 8th birthday. And then Scoob came out this weekend. And we just got asked over and over again by the children, when are we going to watch Scoob? We watched Trolls World Tour. Can we watch Scoob? Ken Jeong is in Scoob. Can we watch Scoob? We've been watching The Masked Singer as a family. And so it's just the right confluence of events have led me to give Warner Brothers Animation Studios $20 to watch an attempt at rebooting the Scooby-Doo franchise with CGI animation. And it's not good.
It's not good, huh?
No, it's not. It's really not. And I did grow up with both the original Scooby-Doo as well as a pup named Scooby-Doo. And I watched that stuff. I don't know. Were you hooked on that?
I was a big Scooby-Doo fan. The old animated series. When did that come out? Was that in the 60s or something? 70s?
Yeah. Okay. The Hanna-Barbera.
The original.
I
loved that stuff as a kid.
Right?
It's kind of like a proto X-Files, right?
Totally. Yeah. Paranormal investigations.
Yeah. I thought it was cool and fun. I wonder how this was going to perform in the theaters. Probably okay. But I guarantee you we're going to get an article. Then this is the first Warner Brothers movies that they put out like this on PVOD. I guarantee you'll get an article in like a week from the Wall Street Journal that's like, it's made like $60 million. It's unbelievable. Scooby-Doo, we're gonna open a new theme park just for Scooby-Doo in a year or something like that. Scoob World.
Oh my gosh, it's true. And it's kind of notable. It got a 54% on Rotten Tomatoes, so it's actually not a terrible score for a children's movie, but it's definitely not good. And the thing that just like twisted my stomach the worst about it is that they like shoehorned in a superhero character played by Mark Wahlberg, and I'm not really sure why. It felt like there was two movies going on at the same time, like actually a pretty sweet rendering of the friendship between the classic characters, with voice cast by Will Forte and Zac Efron. But then there was this whole like weirdo superhero thing going on with like that was like happening on the side, and they were trying to recruit Shaggy and Scooby, and it just felt so much like, you know, a kid, like a Poochie type thing, like like a, you know, old people being like, the kids like superheroes, let's try to figure out a way to work it into the Scooby-Doo reboot. Like, why? But Warner Brothers Animation was on thin ice earlier this year. I remember you kind of railing on them with the performance of Lego Movie 2.
A terrible performance.
Yeah, especially because they really upped to the budget for the sequel, but they did wait a long time. They tried to do those side stories with Lego Batman and Lego Ninjago, which also weren't as huge as the original Lego Movie.
Yeah.
But they did have a couple minor hits last year, considering how little money it took to make Teen Titans Go to the Movies. Was probably broke even or gave them a few million. And Smallfoot, the really terrible Abominable Snowman movie, we had that in conjunction with Abominable last year, and that made them a little bit of cash. One thing I was kind of doing like a deep dive on Warner Brothers Animation, and I had completely forgotten that there was a 14-year gap between their projects, ending with Looney Tunes Back in Action, which was just an absolutely terrible performance back in the early 2000s. And then they didn't make another animated film until the first Lego Movie.
Wow, interesting.
So they have a storied history, and before Back in Action, there was a whole string of just absolute failures. Osmosis Jones, The Iron Giant, even though it's a wonderful movie, it lost them a ton of money. Quest for Camelot, and Space Jam was the only really actual hit they had before they went silent and came back strong in 2014 with the Lego Movie.
Yeah, I sort of like the Lego Movie thing is a weird. I think it popped off way more than I thought it was going to, and then they tried to cash in on it, and it just failed. The cash-in sort of narrative universe failed on it. But I think that was predictable. I sort of called that when they released all those movies, or even planned to release them. So like, what are you doing? Why would you do this? It's so obviously not going to work.
It was a very weird scheduling strategy. Yeah. But I will say, even though I thought Scoob was pretty terrible, I did record a small bit with my sons, Dignan, who's 8, and Lennox, who's 4. And I thought it'd be okay, if it's okay with you, Dan, to hear some actual feedback from real life kids that are pressuring their parents to pay $20.
It's real life market research.
Exactly,
so
that's what it is. Research.
So take it away.
Okay, here you go. This is Chris with a special report featuring my sons Dignan and Lennox, who have some thoughts they wanted to share on the recent VOD premieres of Trolls World Tour and Scoob. So first, let's start with you, Lennox. How old are you?
4.5. Oh yeah. And that's welcome to the next episode. Yeah. It makes very weird. So yeah. Bye.
So you liked Scoob, right? You thought it was a good movie?
Yeah.
Great. And Dignan, how old are you?
I am 8 years old.
You almost said 7, right? Because you just turned 8, correct?
Yeah.
And for your 8th birthday, we got Trolls World Tour to rent, right? And
yeah.
And did you like that movie?
Yeah, but not as much as Scoob.
Right? What kind of scores would you give? Let's say out of 10, what would be your rating for Scoob?
Scoob would be a 9, and
Trolls World Tour?
would be a 5.
Oh, wow. Do you want to give your scores too, Lennox? How many out of 10 would you give Scoob?
No, I'm not going to say that.
Oh, what are you going to say?
And, we were about to watch Scoob on my birthday, but then we chose to do Dr. Dolittle, so then we did Scoob on a different day.
Right. Yeah, we had originally planned to wait until Lennox's birthday to celebrate by renting Scoob on VOD, but you decided you wanted to watch it this weekend and save Dr. Dolittle. So we'll give an update then for that one. So Dignan, why did you think Scoob was so much better than Trolls World Tour?
Because Scoob has more adventure, more jokes, and also...
Do you think the characters were better?
I thought the characters were better than other Scooby-Doo.
Right, because you're not usually a Scooby-Doo kind of kid. You haven't really gotten into those old cartoons that I watched when I was a kid, huh?
Uh-huh.
But you just thought that the new one was really funny. And you also liked that Ken Jeong was in it, right?
Yeah, that's my favorite actor so far.
Do you like Ken Jeong too, Lennox?
Yeah, and guess what? He is in... Is it? Oh, wait, I remember. He was in Masked Singer, but he also, and the voice he uses is the green robot dog.
Right, he plays the green robot dog in the new Scoob movie, and you guys were fans of Ken Jeong because of his work on The Masked Singer, which we've been watching in quarantine as well, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your input. Okay, last final words from Lennox.
And I'm gonna tell something to you. And Daddy, why do you like Masked Singer very much? Please tell me.
Hey, yeah, I enjoy Masked Singer. I think Ken Jeong is pretty funny on it, and it's just a fun, nice show to watch as a family, right? What final comments from Dignan?
I like Masked Singer, but it's kind of annoying. It has so many seasons. We always watch it every single night.
Yeah. Okay, we're all done. Say goodbye to me. Bye with me, Lennox and Dignan.
And I'm gonna say something.
Okay, thank you everybody for listening.
Bye, and
That was Dignan and Lennox, my 8 and 4-year-olds, giving a little bit of feedback on how they thought Scoob played for them last night after they convinced my wife and I to spend $20 on Amazon Prime Video. And you know what? I mean, I do agree with them. It is better than Trolls World Tour, but it is not much better. It's still pretty bad. Simon Cowell has a really terrible cameo, and they did some kind of like Uncanny Valley thing to make it look uber realistic, and it just, oh God, it made my stomach turn.
Gross. It's good to get their perspective though. It's funny that like 9 versus 5. I mean, that's a big gap. They must have liked Scoob a lot more than, I mean, Trolls World Tour just, I could tell, and I haven't seen a kids movie in forever, but it just looks awful. At least Scoob like has some integrity to it. You can tell right away. Speaking of no integrity, Capone also came out on VOD. The Al Capone biopic about the last part of his life. I think I have that right. When he was in Florida post his prison, I guess, or maybe he was in prison down in, I don't even understand. 39% Rotten Tomatoes. Number 2 on iTunes and Amazon Prime. It's a $10 rental as opposed to the $19.99 rental for a lot of this premium VOD stuff. I forgot this was Josh. Is it Trank? Is that how you say his last name?
Yeah, I guess so. How else would you say it? Trank? I don't know.
Trunk? It's like French.
But he has a very interesting profile in JQ this week, and it's kind of, I mean, of course, he's infamous for the gigantic failure of the Fantastic Four reboot. Was that 6 years ago now? 7? God, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was like, was that 2017, I think? Or,
oh my God.
2016? I think 2016, so probably 4 years ago.
2016. Okay, yeah, that it feels like forever ago. And yeah, this is his attempt at a comeback. I don't know. I mean, I have a strange desire to see this movie, even though I pretty much know I know exactly what I'm gonna get. I don't want to see the guy who made Fantastic Four try to do a version of Gus Van Sant's Last Days, but about Al Capone.
With Thomas Hardy as the lead. I mean, like,
yeah.
How did he sign up for this?
I
saw the trailer and I was like, no. What are you doing, man?
I think Tom Hardy is up for anything, to be honest. I think that he's one of those guys that really will follow anybody if they can persuade him enough. I mean, I love that he said yes, but if he could, there was a big oral history of Mad Max Fury Road that came out this week as well. Yeah. And I mean, if George Miller can come back after making Happy Feet and say, hey, I want to go back to the Mad Max franchise. You're going to fill in for Mel Gibson. We're going to go to Namibia for 2 years. And he says yes. Like, the guy's going to say yes to anything.
Did they film that for 2 years?
Yeah, it took 2 years to film.
Shut up. That movie's amazing.
Yeah, I know.
It's so good. And then we have some drive-in box office. There are still drive-ins going. 300K for The Wretched. Is that a horror film?
Yeah, that's the IFC Films Midnight,
the Midnight one. Okay, yeah,
pick that we talked about last week. But the new one that kind of adds to what's been typically just been seen as like horror schlock out at the drive-in, combined with maybe like the what would you call it, the third run theater picks. So there's probably, they're showing Bad Boys 2 and stuff like that. But then also IFC put out a comedy this weekend to test the waters for kind of expanding their drive-in business. It did not make nearly as much, $55K for the Beanie Feldstein effort, How to Build a Girl, which is based on a semi-autobiographical memoir, I guess, about a teen who becomes a music critic. I mean, that sounds familiar, right? Is this just Almost the girl Famous version of Almost Famous? Yeah. But I mean, Beanie Feldstein killed it in Booksmart, and they were probably hoping that they could get some kind of another kind of audience rather than just the horror kids. And they scared up, I guess an okay amount, but you do the analysis on that. If that was, 12 or 20 screens,
not good.
In a limited release,
it's
that's bad, right?
Yeah, it's not good. It's also not a drive-in movie. Drive-in movies are meant for like Fast and the Furious and Jurassic Park 3, which I saw back to back at the drive-in theater.
Yep, I was there.
Oh yeah, you were there. So it's just like, why would you go out? This is like, why would you even put this in theaters? Like,
I don't know.
It goes back to the Booksmart thing. Like, Booksmart should have been in theaters, but then they basically like played it in Netflix the rest of the world the same weekend. So it's like, you got to pick a lane, folks. Like, what kind of movie is this? Like, is this an HBO movie or is this like an A24 art house thing you play for 6 months in the art house theaters? It's just not a good decision to put that on drive. They probably just didn't know what to do with it and wanted to try something else. That's all the movie news we have. A lot of it, of course. Let's do the DEG Watched It Home Top 20 and see how far we can get here. So this is the combined sort of home entertainment chart, the one that the record of truth. This is DVD sales, Blu-ray sales, physical media, and then all digital sales and rentals. So it's the most comprehensive list that we can do here of what's happening in home entertainment with new movies. Number one this week, out of the blue, is Bloodshot, rising from the 12th spot. And as Media Play News pointed out, it's shot to the top because it is now available on Blu-ray disc and DVD. This is measuring the week that ended May 9th. So it's about a week and some behind. So it comes out on DVD, goes from the 12th spot to the 1 spot. I feel like that's a fascinating thing because like you would think that it's been on premium VOD since March when it was supposed to come out. So you could have bought it or rented it for $19.99. You can now rent it for $5.99, but it shoots to the top because now it's on DVD and Blu-ray. What? Who has a DVD player?
Yeah, apparently a lot of people. It's very strange. Maybe there's a different. I do think that there's an untapped audience that we kind of had been ignoring on the show, because I was thinking more about this after we talked about this last week, and the only thing I could really rustle up at the time was like impulse buys at Target on your way out, and especially during quarantine, maybe that's more likely. So people like, oh yeah, we should get that because we're not going to be doing anything tonight or tomorrow night or any other night. Yeah. But I was thinking about this generation of people that maybe is a little younger than what you were thinking about when we talked about Call of the Wild. But like that range of movie lover that's, you know, somewhere between like mid 40s and early 60s is like they probably have their home theater set up, like especially like those guys that live in the outer ring suburbs. Yeah, like they've got their DVD player set up that they've had and used consistently since, you know, a DVD player home theater centric system had been the norm in the early 2000s or so.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And what they've had no reason to really get out of that. And also, I mean, there's also the matter of perhaps people, you know, digging those DVD players out again and thinking like, oh, this will make sense to just, I don't know, people, maybe some kind of regression thing happening rather than
psychoanalysis. Let's keep going.
I don't know.
DVDs are back. It's official. Bloodsport or Bloodshot.
That's the conclusion here.
Bloodsport would have been better to see than Bloodshot. People. I don't know what you guys are doing with your lives. But from 12 to number 1, what's number 2?
Bad Boys for Life. We've been talking about it forever, but this is the first time it's not at number 1 since we've started looking at the EG chart. But yeah, I mean, we've officially gone over the 200 mil mark for domestic on this movie.
That's crazy. It's just like insane. It's like these, like Bad Boys for Life and Jumanji Next Level in the 4th spot, I kind of like lump together as just movies that just play. They just play and play and play. And they're all throwback movies. They're comfort food essentially for people, escapism. There's just, I think it really just come down to comfort. They're just movies you can toss on and not think about anything, and just kind of enjoy the spectacle on the screen. And I don't know, do you think Sonic the Hedgehog falls into that, or is that more like a freshness and new thing that people want to see?
I think it's a bit of a combination. I'm actually surprised my kids haven't bothered me about that one, but I just don't think that the marketing is hitting them like it was with Scoob and Trolls World Tour.
It's got Jim Carrey. Come on.
I know,
James
right?
Marsden and his career-defining role.
Oh my gosh.
So 1's Bloodshot, 2 is Bad Boys for Life, 3 is Sonic the Hedgehog, 4 is Jumanji Next Level, 5 is Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, falling from the number 2 spot or down 2 spots. How do we read that? I don't even know.
It's down 2 spots, so it was number 3 last week. We should say this is the chart ending May 9th.
Yeah.
So
May 9th.
We're a little behind here. That's the way they publish them. But obviously this is probably primarily due to Rise of Skywalker going on Disney Plus.
Yeah, exactly. So you have that streaming option. How much is Disney Plus these days? Like $13 or something?
No, I think it's still $7.99 or it's $13.99 if you do the like ESPN bundle.
Oh yeah, with the Hulu and stuff
right.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
We got a new one at number 6 though. I Still Believe. I really want to see this. I don't know why I want to see this.
I forgot.
This is like my weird thing. I love Britt Robertson for some reason. I don't know why. And I like I don't know why I like these Christian movies for some reason. I'm not Christian, I'm an atheist. But I like these movies because I feel like it's a good, warm. I also love Hallmark movies, so that's probably why I like movies like this.
Yeah, this is your comfort food.
Yeah, this is my comfort food. This is like a world that I know doesn't exist, but I can pretend that it does exist. And it makes me feel
it's fantasy.
Yeah, fantasy. It's my Lord of the Rings, Christian contemporary music movies. Great performance for this. 6 is a good spot to be in. This thing. Did this thing actually come out? I don't even remember. It was supposed to.
I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah.
It's not technically a direct to VOD situation, I don't think. But it's definitely a film that it's going to hit that demographic. The Christian demographic is just like totally bankable. They will show up. They will give it an A+ on Cinema Score. and they'll spread the word that it's amazing no matter what it is, as long as Jesus comes out on top. And so it's one of those films. I don't know why Britt Robertson's in it, though. She didn't really seem like a Christian movie kind of.
Well, she was in that Longest Ride movie too, right?
Oh yeah, but that's
was
more
that
like
a Christian movie?
No, that was like Nicholas.
That was
Sparks.
more Hallmark. Oh, it's Nicholas Sparks.
Yeah,
okay,
Nicholas
gotcha.
Sparks. She was great in that. Really good.
Yeah. So it came out. I was just looking up for you. March 13th. So that was that last weekend of box office activity, and it managed to scare up 10 million.
That's not that bad.
No.
Oh yeah, I do remember that now. Yeah,
12 million budget. So they're probably and we've already got 9 million from VOD. So not bad at all.
Not bad. Okay, so what's next on the list? Gentleman drops 2 spots to 7. Stop renting this, people. I don't know what you're doing with your life. Just it's so bizarre why people are watching that movie.
I don't know.
What's in the 8th spot?
Birds of Prey, Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Moving up 2 from the previous week. And was this a Blu-ray thing too? Because I feel like I actually saw an ad. I was surprised. I don't usually see ads for physical media anymore, but on Blu-ray. So maybe that's the reason for the jump. Doolittle down 3 spots at number 9, and last at number 10. Dan.
1917 drops 2 spots in the 10 spot. So kind of the typical sort of usual suspects here in the top 10. There was a new one that I thought was interesting.
Right,
Arkansas with Liam Hemsworth and who are these other people? Vince Vaughn's in it somehow. It's a direct to VOD film, or they call it early video on demand release. I think that's like their word for the premium VOD stuff that's going on right now. But I don't really know anything about this film. I saw no trailer. I had no idea it was getting released. Didn't see any press about it whatsoever. But here it is in the 12 position here on the Watched at Home chart. What do you make of this? Is this like a dump?
I have no idea because I've never heard of it. And I feel like with this kind of cast and kind of premise, I would have. Dixie Mafia, sign me up. I want to look into the reviews of this movie. It was actually also directed by Clark Duke, the comedic actor from Hot Tub Time Machine.
Oh,
the
I love
guy
that
with
guy.
glasses.
He's fun.
Yeah.
A director though, huh? Didn't
this is his directorial debut.
It's got to be terrible.
Yeah, it's got to be terrible. I mean, he clearly just binged Justified for 7 weeks and then was like, I'm going to make a movie like this. I don't know.
Let's hope so. I want to check it out. What else? New one. Gretel and Hansel in the 14 slot. Have you seen this one yet?
No, I have not. You said it was actually pretty good, right?
It's a visual wonder.
That sounds like high marks, but
yeah, it's a visual wonder. The story is complete trash. It's really really weak. But it's a beautiful film. I mean, it's definitely, if you were a horror fan, if you're into cinematography at all, check out the movie because it's worth seeing. That's in the 14th spot. I don't think that's going to stay there. I think it's going to drop out of the top 20 in the next show. Yeah. What else? Rick and Morty season 4. I don't know why this is on this list. Isn't that TV?
I was wondering about that too.
I don't really get it. And maybe they like packaged it together in some weird way.
Maybe.
And then Justice League Dark Apocalypse War. Do you have any idea what that is? In the 15th spot?
No, it seems like another one of those animated DC movies that I feel like there is some kind of audience for them, just like there is an audience for those Mortal Kombat movies, one of which was on the chart last week and is now conspicuously absent.
It's gone, just disappeared.
Yeah.
Completely gone. And then Like a Boss, Knives Out, and The Way Back are kind of in the bottom of the top 20. But that's it. That's it for the top 20. That's all we got. I got nothing else. You got anything else, Chris?
No, that's we managed to pull an hour out of all that stuff. That's pretty impressive. We didn't even have to do anything from Deadline. So
it's amazing. I love it. In any event, we will be back next week. Thanks for listening. This has been the Wildline Podcast.
See ya.